let's talk about how to keyframe and track our effect masks in Premiere. So we've already talked a bit about applying masks, and we've done so in the form of creating vignettes around our frame. So if I want a blurred vignette surrounding this video frame, I would just select my clip and then come to Effects, and I'm just going to type in Blur and grab one of my blurs. I'll get my Gaussian Blur. Okay, and then I'll come up to Effect Controls, and underneath every effect, we have our masking controls. We've already explored ellipse masks, so let me do a free draw bezier mask. And then I'm going to draw a mask surrounding the frame. When I click and then release and click and release and click and release, we get corners. If I click and drag, you can see that I get bezier curves. Okay, so I'm just going to do a combination of bezier and just standard points and close that up. This right here is my feathering control. So if I grab this and bring it out, it's going to soften the edge of my shape. It's equivalent to this mask feather right here. And then we would just up our blurriness. Okay, so now everything inside the shape is blurred, and then I would just invert that. Okay, so we have these blurred edges surrounding our frame and have created our vignette. But in this case, we wouldn't really animate our mask, okay? But let's say that instead of creating a vignette, we want to blur out our subject as she's walking across the frame. So I'll do something very similar, but let me just blow away this mask. I'm going to just click on the mask and press delete, and let's create another one. So I have the Gaussian blur applied. I'm going to just do an ellipse mask, and we'll go to the very beginning here. And I want to draw a shape around her. Okay, so she is obscured, and I'll feather this out a little bit. Except what happens? She walks across the frame. We want her to be obscured the entire time. So all I want to do is keyframe that over time. I'm going to come to Mask Path and click on my little stopwatch. And when you do that, a lot of times your mask wireframe will disappear. Just click on the mask heading again and it will come back. And then you can just drag your cursor through the clip and then move your shape, okay? So I'll just go across the frame, and this is about as easy as you can get. She's just moving from right to left, really not too much going on besides that, so we can get this done with some easy keyframing. Okay, and off stage. Now I'm just gonna go through the whole thing and make sure the shape stays over her, and it does. Okay, so now we've obscured our subject as she walks across the frame. Okay, let's come to this one though. Let's say that we need to obscure his face. And so he's not just going across the frame, he's also rotating and he's coming nearer to us. So we have quite a few things going on. Let me show you how to keyframe it, and then I'm going to show you how to automatically track it. So I'll select it and add our blur. And I'm going to also do an ellipse mask here. So I'll just click on ellipse mask. And we're on the very first frame, so I'll make the mask surround his face, okay? And then I'm just going to scrub through this so we can see the movement. So if I was to manually keyframe this, again, I would click my mask path stopwatch, and then I'll click on my mask heading again to get my wireframe back. And while I'm at it, let's go ahead and up our blurriness and our feathering a little bit. Okay, so this would involve just stepping through and then moving my mask and stepping through and moving my mask. And then pretty soon we're going to need to grow the size of the mask. So this actually needs to get a little bit larger. And we'll keep going. And so on and so forth. And keep growing the mask. And then it's going to need to go off stage pretty soon here because his head is no longer in the video frame. All right, so that needs a little bit of tweaking, but you can see how that gets done by manually keyframing it. I'm going to delete all these keyframes, so I'll just lasso them and then press delete. And let's go back to the beginning, and I want to talk to you about the automatic controls. In many cases, you can tell Premiere to follow the action across the frame for you. So what I'm going to do is come to this wrench, and in this case, I want to make sure that position, scale, and rotation are chosen because those are all the things that are happening within the motion of this shot. I also want to make sure that preview is checked so that I can actually see the mask track across the frame. Okay, so I'm going to just click on this Track Selected Mask Forward button, and then a dialog box is going to come up, and it's going to show me the progress. If at any point the mask goes off track, I'm going to simply hit stop. So let me show you this. I'll click on Track Selected Mask Forward, and then I'm just going to hover over the stop button here, and if I ever need to change it, I'm going to just hit stop. So far, so good, though. All right, I'm going to stop there and just reposition slightly, and I'll keep going. And stop again, and I'm going to manually move this off screen from here on. And you can see that a keyframe has been added at every frame. If I zoom in here, plus, you can see that I have keyframe data at every frame within this animation, and so you can come in and actually modify any of these keyframes that you need to. But let's see how it did. I'm going to play through. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Let me come to this last example, and it has some trickier elements to it. Let's say that over the course of this clip, I want to blur this guy that's walking across the frame, except he walks in back of some other people that I don't want to blur. So let me show you how to set this up. Select the clip and get my Gaussian blur on there. And again, I'm going to do an ellipse mask, and let's surround his face, his head. Okay, feather that a bit, up my blurriness. Okay, so this time, instead of doing the automatic track, what I'm going to do is do Track Selected Mask Forward 1 frame. And I'm going to go 1 frame at a time until we don't want to see the mask anymore. And then I'm going to turn it off, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to go forward a frame at a time, and it's going to follow him. And I think as I get to the side of this other guy's face, I'm going to reshape the mask so that we don't bleed into him at all. And we'll track forward and reshape. Okay, at this point, what I want to do is turn the mask off. And so I'm going to come to Mask Opacity, and I'm going to click on that stopwatch, and then I'll go forward 1 frame, and then I'm going to bring my opacity down to 0. So I've effectively turned the mask off, okay? And so we'll then go across, and you can see that it's not blurred here, all right? The mask is still there, but we can't actually see the effect, the blur. So then I'm going to go forward to where he comes out, which is right here. And then we're going to go ahead and bring our opacity back up. But I need to add a keyframe here, and then one right before. And then we'll come to this one and bring our opacity back up to 100. And now here's the blur. It's not positioned correctly, so I'm just going to click on Mask and bring that back over. And again, we can track forward. And I'll need to reshape this mask. And I'm not going to have enough time to go through this entire effect because it does take a little while to do this in real time. So let me just switch over to my post mask track sequence. And you can see here the effect controls panel, so you can see all the keyframes under mask opacity and mask path. As this goes through, the mask turns off, it turns back on, then it turns off, and it turns on, and so on and so forth. All right? So every effect in Premiere has these built-in masks. And many times you'll either need to manually keyframe or automatically track these effects across the frame as people and objects move.